What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh and this is Overlanding Now, and today we're going to be discussing the final fate of the Subaru Outback Wilderness. But we want to talk about, after 12,000 miles, how this vehicle is performed on-road, how it's performed off-road, how it's done towing, the issues that we've had that have been repetitive and annoying. So if this car is something you've ordered and you're waiting for it, you kind of know what to expect. And I'd also love to hear about the issues that we have if other people have them. At the very end of this video, we're going to talk about if we're keeping or selling it. Because, you know, there's some things that we don't love. But this video should help you make a decision on what you want to do with your Subaru Outback Wilderness. And after 12,000 miles, I think we have a pretty good idea of what to expect. Stay tuned. All right, so daily driving. You've driven this vehicle far more than I, and a lot of people have asked your opinion. They truly don't care about mine. So from a daily driving perspective, what do you think of the Subaru Outback Wilderness? Do you think this is a good daily driving vehicle?
Yes.
Why?
It's comfortable, it's big, gas mileage is great.
Car seat fits.
The car seat fits, it's not a wind sail. I think it's a great daily driver.
So when we put the stuff on the roof, a lot of people had asked about wind noise. And I tried to explain to people as best that I can, we're coming from Jeeps with big tires and tents. So wind noise to us is different than what wind noise is to these people. What did you notice, like a wind noise difference when we put like the Max Tracks, the axe, the shovel, and that additional rack on top?
There's definitely a difference of not having it on and having it on, but it's not noticeable.
I didn't think it was noticeable either.
No, I mean, I noticed it, but it's not noticeable.
Okay. Now, what about the tires? Because we swapped from the Yokohama Geolanders, and then we went to the BFG KO2s, and the KO2s are what was on the vehicle for the entire trip that we were on. So what is your take from the Geolanders, which I personally don't really remember because the car was so new already. Yeah. Like, I don't really remember what they were, and we never did anything with them. No. But what do you think about the KO2s? Because that's what you had on your Jeep before we sold it, actually before we put new tires on it. So what do you think? How were those? Were they loud? Were they... I know our gas mileage definitely decreased a bit, but yeah. Did you notice road noise or handling issues or anything like that?
No, they were great. Minus the gas mileage.
Yeah, the gas mileage dropped a couple miles per gallon, which we expected because they're significantly bigger as well as significantly heavier. Now, what I think everybody really cares about, we would say on-road driving is great. It's nice. We come from Jeeps, so this thing, driving it on road, you don't hear anything.
No,
the turbo in it gets you where you gotta go. You're not dogging down the road. You don't have to worry when you get on the highway if you're gonna get hit by a semi-truck, which we know is a fear of yours.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Every time I drive.
So, what's important now is the off-road capability. You did 90% of the driving on our trip.
It was like 97.
Yeah. And I did everything else, literally. Taking care of the child. So, off-road driving, what do you think the Subaru Outback Wilderness limitations are? Because we went in Joshua Tree, we did Old Dale Road. That was...
my first melt.
That was your first melt, but that was like a moderate trail, but I would say that was a difficult trail for this vehicle.
Yes. So,
in the rocky terrain that we were in Joshua Tree, how do you think the Subaru Outback Wilderness performed over decent sized boulders?
Oh, it's tough. My first melt came a little early.
Came right away.
Yeah. It's definitely capable. However, I'm not comfortable in it.
Can you make any sense of that? Because I feel like that's one of those comments where...
Well, the more that we drove it, the more that I realized, okay, it definitely can go places, but I'm still wouldn't be comfortable taking it like on any more difficult trails than we had already been on. We have many more melts.
I think we pushed it, I would say, honestly, and this is one of the big factors in the keep it or sell it thing. I think we pushed the vehicle pretty much to its point. I mean, we towed a trailer through the Joshua Tree in like a super difficult section. Like that was a melt, but it did it. But I don't think I wouldn't say it's safe to go much further than what we did.
No, especially not with the trailer.
So like the off-road performance, what you have to understand, and we'll kind of segue this into like the CVT and the transmission, is the off-road performance is really good. And I think the majority of the people who choose this vehicle over a Jeep, a 4Runner, or something bigger, a Lexus GX, people who choose this vehicle have probably a different mindset than what we're used to having. So we come from a world where our vehicles are really, we're the limitation in where we go, not so much the vehicle.
Right.
And with the CVT's transmission, you had a lot of trouble with that. When we were on Old Dale Road and then we went to that other trail pulling the trailer, the CVT transmission will cut out and it will not distribute power to the wheels. And there were several times you would run up, bump a rock, and we're used to pressing that gas and getting right over it.
Right.
So what was that like? Because there were a couple of times you literally told me like, I can't, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
You were out there and you're like, well, just hit it. And I'm like, well, I'm floored. Like there's no power. I think that is definitely something to get used to, because it can be a little sketchy because you're trying to get over this obstacle and the car just like stops. But after a while it'll kick back on.
Yeah.
So it's definitely just something to get used to from driving the car.
So the low end torque, obviously if you're a Subaru person, you know this, like the low end torque just isn't there. And there were several times where you would have the pedal all the way to the floor and nothing was happening, no wheels were spinning.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do was, well, let's try X mode, right? Because I think Subaru has touted X mode as kind of this different computerized mechanism that can remove the limitations that you have when you're going over rocky terrain or you're in deep snow and mud, and it delivers more torque to the wheels. At least that's the claim. In your opinion, when we tried X mode on Old Dale Road, do you think X mode provided you any additional assistance than just normal driving mode?
No, it was trash.
Sorry, Subaru.
I don't think that it did anything. It definitely helped out going downhill, but other than that, I didn't feel like it did anything.
Well, there were a couple of times when we were coming downhill and I was like, why are you going so slow?
So slow.
And you were like, it's not me, it's the car. So X mode for your downhill descent, like that control system, the speed control, is extremely helpful. Because we were in icy spots, we were in snowy spots, and you had it on, and it was keeping you at a nice steady pace. You didn't have to have your foot on the brake or the gas. And that was definitely comforting and rewarding. But outside of that, now, we had X mode on several times, but much like our Jeep, when you get over a certain speed, the X mode would turn off. Like our sway bar disconnect will reconnect on our Jeep once we hit 20 or 25?
Yeah.
I forget what it is.
It might even be 15. I don't remember.
But once you hit a certain speed, it would reconnect the sway bar automatically because obviously that sway bar keeps the vehicle from, being more tippy. And it seemed like the X mode would always turn itself off once we got to a certain speed.
Yeah.
So I wasn't paying much attention. I wasn't driving, and I don't even think you knew to pay attention to that.
Well, no, I turned it on when we first got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, what's X mode? And then I was driving faster than 25 and it shut off. That's how I knew that it turns off after certain miles per hour.
Which, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but the X mode really didn't do much for us. I didn't think that the X mode is talked about like it is a big game changer for the CVT transmission to deliver more power, to deliver more torque. We had it on and it didn't do anything more. If you're not used to driving a vehicle that has a CVT transmission, then you need to understand you're going to have to just more speed. when you were going over bumps,
Oh
it was
yeah,
just,
you have to start out more speed. There is no.
and you kind of have
trying
to
crawl over it.
The car has to take a little bit more of a beating because you're not able
Yeah.
to just slowly go over rocks. Now we're not talking about boulders, and that's one thing. In our Jeeps, we have done some extremely difficult stuff, and none of the stuff that we did was like extremely difficult. If we were in a different vehicle, it would have taken us no time to get through those trails, and they probably really wouldn't even have been that fun.
No. Yeah.
But this vehicle did make less difficult trails more fun, I guess. If you want to consider that a win, I don't necessarily consider that a win. Now, the broken windshields.
Yeah, I mean, we have never broken a windshield on a trail. It's always been
On a highway.
on a highway. And the Subaru, I mean, I was sitting in the passenger seat and then we got gas and we got back in and I'm like, I mean, where did that come from? I mean, the thing was already like this big.
Yeah.
And it's like right in my line of sight. And it just, we don't even know.
It wasn't like there was a specific time we were driving down the highway and
Right.
we heard a rock or something hit the windshield. You got in the vehicle and you were like, there's a crack in our windshield. Now, we know that this is an issue with Subarus. It's also an issue with Jeeps. Every single time we take a trip, we break a windshield in whatever vehicle we're in.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. So, from the windshield perspective, expect a broken windshield within the first year of ownership. I just think that's kind of par for the course when it comes to any Subaru vehicle. You would think they would use something a little bit more sturdy, but I don't make vehicles. Now, towing. Towing in the Subaru Outback Wilderness on the road within the vehicle's limits is fantastic.
It's great. You can't even feel it.
You can't even feel it. I was so over the moon about that small teardrop and how the Subaru towed it all the way across the country. When I got home, I had taken the teardrop somewhere with the Gladiator, and you could still tell.
I wasn't in there.
I know, but I'm telling you now because I don't think I told you. Like, you could still tell that trailer was back behind the Gladiator because it would the RPMs would kind of bounce around.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, and it's only probably 2,000 pounds max, and it was the Gladiator still. You could tell something was back there. It wasn't having trouble, but you could tell with the RPMs. And the Subaru, absolutely no issues pulling that trailer across the country and through through some sketchy. We definitely shouldn't have done that trail. How was it pulling that trailer through what was that, Pinkham Canyon?
I don't know. All I knew was we were in it.
And there was no getting out of it.
There's no getting out of it, so either we're getting through it and something's breaking, or we're getting through it and nothing's breaking.
And we made it through.
Yeah,
That was way far beyond what we should have been doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't ever take the teardrop across country again.
With the Subaru.
Yeah. I mean, it pulls it great, but like getting there, again, it's the same thing with the GeoPro. It limits us as to where we can go because we want to explore, but we know that, I wouldn't drive it up any cliffs or down. We just so happened to be in the wash that day and there was
no getting out.
spots.
And once you go over that first obstacle, that was really difficult. The only thing in your mind is, if we turn around, we have to go back over that.
Right.
So at that point, it's just like, okay, there's only 5 more miles, 6 more miles, let's just go. But I think the Subaru is towing it across the country was really good. Then you have that base camp scenario, right? When we got the GeoPro, and the reason we got this really small teardrop is because I don't want to have to base camp. Like, we want to be able to go from place to place to place and camp a different spot every night. Like, that's the thrill of it, finding a new spot, even if that first spot was absolutely beautiful. And I think the limitations that the Subaru has with the teardrop for us, now I don't think everybody is on the same page in terms of the type of trails that they do and where they want to go.
Right.
A lot of people with this vehicle go on dirt roads, gravel roads, muddy roads, snowy roads, but nothing that is going to really press the limits of the vehicle itself. And we don't do that intentionally. Like, that's not our intention. But every single time we want to get somewhere, it seems we have like a limiting factor. So in terms of towing the teardrop, it did really well. But doing it again, I don't think I would ever tow it across the country because we're just limited in what we can do. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Well, I think if we're going to talk about keep it or sell it.
What, the teardrop?
Sell it. If we're going to talk about keep it or sell it, what is your take on keep it or sell it for this vehicle? What do you want to do? Because we've had many discussions about this. This is not like a new conversation. And I'll be honest, I'm going to level with everybody. When we were in California, something happened. I forget what it was.
Oh, it was the infotainment. We didn't talk about that.
Oh, the infotainment screen. Let's get into that. It just doesn't work half the time.
Trash.
It's really bad.
Yeah, and I feel like it's progressively getting worse. I mean, I'll get in the car and it doesn't come on.
No, and when it does come on,
it's like you press it and then you're waiting.
It's such.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's a huge pet peeve.
Huge pet peeve.
Yeah.
And I think not being able. It's a beautiful screen. It's big. It's pretty. But there's so much that's controlled through it, and if it doesn't work, you can't do anything. And that'll take me to the next point, which I almost forgot. The attempt Subaru made to make this car like uber safe actually has a lot of drawbacks. So we have low windshield washer fluid. And typically when you have a low windshield washer fluid, you get a light on your instrument cluster. You know that you have low windshield wiper fluid and eventually it's going to run out, so you got to refill it. This has sent me text messages, multiple emails. It shut down the infotainment screen and popped up as an alert warning for the vehicle that I had to clear out. And in the center, when you're driving, you turned it off. She literally counted 79 times she turned off.
On the way back from Asheville.
The windshield washer fluid light would hit the info button, turn it off, and then it pops back up.
It's almost like there's like a sensor of like when you're driving. I wonder if there's a sensor in there when you're driving, like you go around like turns or something, and it like goes up and then down from the sensor. That's almost what it's like, because there's no like rhyme or reason. It wasn't like, oh, every 10 minutes. It was like, oh, it came on, and then it came on again. And when we were on our way back from Asheville, I'm like, if this thing turns on one more time. And it did. And then it's sending texts to my phone.
I just think it's unnecessary. These things that Subaru attempted to do to make the vehicle safer are actually much more dangerous because it is constantly beeping at you.
Yeah.
The car never stops beeping. It is the most annoying thing about this vehicle is it beeps at you for everything. And I mean, you think it's going to shut the car down like it's a biohazard emergency. But keep it or sell it. What would be the reasons to keep it?
The Subaru community.
The Subaru community is really great.
Everybody is so nice.
Very, very nice. Well, there's some people that suck, but there's some people that suck everywhere. The majority of the population of the Subaru community has been so freaking awesome and so freaking welcoming because we're new. We've never done anything Subaru related before. I just like this car, and I thought I can probably do something with this.
Yeah.
So what about that's the community. What about the car? What about the car would make you want to keep it?
It's a very comfortable daily driver.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely so sorry to my Jeep. I would definitely choose to drive it as a daily driver other than the Jeep.
Yeah.
Over the Jeep.
For sure.
Yeah, it's comfortable. It's a great daily driver.
And gas mileage, we've already gone over that. Why would you sell it? Oh, the silence.
I know. I just don't feel like I just need to get used to it. I just feel a lot more safe in a Jeep because I know what the Jeep can do and I know its limitations.
Right.
This, I feel like we're not quite we know what the limitations are, and we always find ourselves in some
situation that's beyond our limitations.
Yeah, always, no matter where we go, and it's
it doesn't
not
matter what
intentional.
vehicle we're in either.
Yeah, so it makes me nervous to be somewhere and then this car just not be able to do it, but we would just definitely have to be more mindful and do even more research of when we take it places.
That's my biggest reason to want to sell it. It limits us.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing research. I enjoy doing the research. I enjoy finding Death Valley. Sorry, I kind of interrupted myself there. Death Valley. We were going to go to Death Valley, right?
Yes.
We were going to go to Death Valley. There were a lot of areas. I wanted to do the whole thing, and granted, I could have done some and not others and turned around and came back out. But the reason we didn't go was specifically the vehicle.
Yeah, and pulling the teardrop.
Yeah. Had we not had the teardrop, and if you don't have a teardrop, you would be fine, but there are still super sketchy sections in Death Valley that you may not be fine in. There's one really deep water crossing that a lot of large trucks and large SUVs have problems with. So it limits us. I always have to think like 2 or 3 steps ahead about where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, what type of terrain we're going to come in contact with. And in the Gladiator, obviously, I don't have those fears. I don't even think about it. I look at the trail. If it's like an 8 out of 10, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a long day, and we might be here for a month. But I'm not questioning the vehicle's limitations or its capabilities, and that's one thing that I think this vehicle has done is made me have to pre-plan a lot more. And there's spots that I want to get to that this vehicle's not going to take me to, and that would be my number one reason to sell it.
Yeah, I think it's just we just have to find its place within our family.
Yes.
Like, what is this vehicle?
Its intended purpose for us.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, we have the beautiful luxury of having a vehicle like the Gladiator that we know has no real limitations other than us. And then we have this vehicle, and how does that fit in? Because the whole reason to get this and to get rid of your Jeep was comfort. It's more economical, better gas mileage. How can that fit into our family? Because we only traveled with 3 this time. If we would have traveled with 4, things would have been a lot different. And we have to try to find where this vehicle fits in.
Yeah.
So do you want to keep it or do you want to sell it?
We're going to keep it. Well,
Okay.
what do you want to do?
I don't think I have a choice.
Why?
Because you just made the decision for us.
If you had a choice.
If I had a choice, I would keep it for I also, my vote is keep it for a while longer. Let's see where we can get with this vehicle. But caveats. There's a few modifications that I need to do.
What? You always do this when we're on camera. You always bring it up when we're
Because it's like when you ask your mom if your friends can stay the night, it's really hard for them to say no when they're standing right there. So, there's a few modifications. Yeah, we're poor. But the thing is, the suspension. The suspension, it just isn't good enough.
Really?
No. One thing I didn't mention, bottoming out over speed bumps.
When?
You've never when we go today, I'll show you what I mean.
I mean, you can't go over the
No, I'm not. So when you go over a speed
from the tires being so big. It's not the tires rubbing.
No. It's literally, you can hear the suspension hitting its limit.
I feel like if you're going over a speed bump and the suspension's bottoming out, there's something wrong with it. I don't feel like it's the suspension.
Well, the problem is down travel. So I was down travel. You only have so much down travel in your suspension. And even if you go up and just say the back end comes up because the shocks make the back end come up, but the wheels go down at the same exact time, you hit your limit.
I know, but what I'm saying is, then why would we haven't done anything to it. I feel like you should be able to go over a speed bump.
I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm not making it up.
Okay.
That's besides the point. The point is, I want more down travel. I think the suspension is good for people who are driving it and doing regular things with it. Gravel roads. But I'm going to tell you right now, speed bumps at a regular speed. What I'm telling you is that I am not going to do regular things.
No, and that's fine.
Okay.
No, okay.
So, suspension. I'm going to put new suspension on it. That's one of my hard lines. We have to get new suspension. Because I just think we need more down travel. We need something that provides us a bit more articulation, and I think it will really stabilize the vehicle much differently than the factory suspension does, especially with the larger tires.
Okay.
Second, number 2, torque locker.
What's that do?
Locks the transmission. So when those wheels start spinning, as opposed to them spinning independently and letting the computer figure it out, it'll lock those rear wheels together and they'll spin at the same time.
Okay.
So it's kind of like four-wheel drive.
Okay.
So a torque locker, we are going to put a torque locker in this in order for us to, I think it will really help in those times when those wheels are trying to find their place. A lot of people say the computer system in the Subarus is like extremely comprehensive, and I'm sure that it is, but unless you've been up against a situation where you're not getting any traction and your CV, your transmission just stops pulling, I think the torque locker will help out a lot.
People say that it's like, I didn't experience that.
When you
It was like
when you lost power
system. It was very, very slow. There was a huge delay.
But when you lost power,
yeah,
that's what that torque locker should help reduce. I do want to do some wheel spacers, like a 1/2 inch wheel spacer to get those wheels. That's more of an image thing.
I don't like that.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
And that's it. That's the only real things I can think of that I would like to change.
That's
the things
not bad.
that I would like to do.
I can live
because
with that.
I think that will make a huge difference in its capability. Oh, we'll make a video on this too. I'm gonna remove the rear sway bar.
What?
Yeah.
For what?
Articulation.
But
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
But I can put it right back on. I can literally take it off when we get to the trail, just unscrew the bolts.
I thought you meant just like...
No, it's just literally taking it off.
I just feel like it's there for a reason. And
it definitely is.
It doesn't come off for a reason.
Well, it comes off for a reason, but it's there for a reason too.
We're just going to leave it.
We're going to take it off. Because I think that will give the rear end more articulation. And because that 3-wheel stuff that you were going through. You hit 3-wheel a couple times and it scared the crap out of you. You didn't love it.
No.
Nobody loves 3-wheel motion. So that's it. We are going to keep the Subaru Outback Wilderness for now. And I think there's some more that we can do to make this vehicle more capable. I think it's going to be good. I'm excited for it. I don't know when we're going to take it on another trip, but we're going to have to, because once I get these modifications done and I get everything installed, I want to see what this thing is capable of. And I'm going to push it even further than we already have. You are. I don't really do anything. I just film it and spot you. So that's it. We're going to keep it. And we hope that you guys got some good information from this video. If there's anything that you think I need to touch on that I didn't, please put that in the comments so I can answer those questions or possibly make another video depending upon how important the subject is. Thank you for your time today and coming on the show and giving us your experience behind the wheel. And we will see you guys on the next one.